Okay, so much like Double or Nothing itself, I imagine this review is probably going to go quite long. So get some popcorn, take a seat, and enjoy. Hello and welcome to FTTR, I'm Hugh McQuaid, and today we are talking about AEW Double or Nothing, the big old pay-per-view that occurred last night from Las Vegas, featuring Anarchy in the Arena, the in-ring return of Mercedes Monet, and so much more, because this was a big old show with some good and some bad, but I actually think I'm going to be in the minority on this one, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. But before we dive into that, please hit subscribe, please like this video, please comment your thoughts on the show down below, and I'll try and apply to every single one of them as we dive into this. So Double or Nothing, I think it's quite a polarising show from some of the reactions that I've seen online. I think people either love it or they hate it. There's one big sticking point that we will get to, but I think I'm in the minority because I actually really enjoyed this show. I thought it was, from sort of top to bottom, really fun. Like, the in-ring work was so solid across the board, and I had a blast with most of the matches. Like, it's not the best pay-per-view that AEW's ever put on, but there are some really great highlight moments that I will distinctly remember going forward, and the way that the show made me feel and some of the matches, I was like, this is it, this is what AEW needs to be. Now, on the other hand, there is the sort of constant criticism of AEW, and that is too long, too many matches. This could have been saved for Dynamite, and I do again feel that way about this show. This show was 4.5 hours long, not including the pre-show. I didn't watch the pre-show because I'm already going to be watching Progress as well today live about 3 o'clock. I didn't want to sit through what would have been 5.5 hours of wrestling, edit this, and then watch probably 4 hours of wrestling. Is a lot in a day, and pre-shows never really mean anything anyway, to be honest. So I didn't watch the pre-show. 4.5 hours still. That is very long. That is borderline offensively long. It's not offensive as WrestleMania 35, but he's getting there. And there were some matches that I can name now. Trent and Orange Cassidy probably shouldn't have been on this show. Death Triangle versus Bang Bang Gang probably shouldn't have been on the show. And maybe the triple threat, I think you could argue, for the FTW Championship, shouldn't have been on the show. But other than those matches, which technically were really good, I had a blast with this show. I really did. So let's just dive straight into that with the opening match, which was Roderick Strong taking on Will Ospreay for the International Championship. This was a Will Ospreay match, of course it was, and of course it was a certified banger. These two went hell for leather on each other, started off really quick, really fast paced, and then you got Undisputed Kingdom shenanigans coming in. I love the opening of this match, which is when Roderick Strong is going to do his big pose in the ring, and then you get Will Ospreay just run in from outside of the frame and go straight for a hidden blade. That really set this match off to an insanely fast pace. And then you had a lot of interference in this match with the Undisputed Kingdom. You had Matt Taven and Mike Bennett getting involved a lot, and then you had Wardlow making an appearance, who sort of he's the big distraction. He gets clocked. He clocks Will Ospreay, and that's when you get the big, oh no, we've seen this. They didn't get ejected though, I don't think. I'm pretty sure they didn't get ejected because they were still sort of mingling around ringside even after Wardlow made his appearance in the ring. But just some of the sequences in this, like a huge, like, it was a superplex into a backbreaker from Roderick Strong, the Messiah of the Backbreaker. I love when he does the running the ropes things as well, when he's got someone in the middle of the rope. It's beautiful to watch, and strike him with those elbows. And then there was just an incredible sequence of counters leading to an Oscar, which was insanely good. These two had such great chemistry together. And then you had sort of the story beat of this, which was the Tiger Driver. Don Callis on commentary. He's coming in. It looks like Will Ospreay thinks he might have injured Roderick Strong, and he's sort of got his head buried in the corner. Don Callis comes over and he said, use the Tiger Driver, do it, you can do this. injure him, send him to the hospital, I'm pretty sure he said. And then you get that Will Ospreay see him ready, goes for the Tiger Driver. That gives Roderick Strong a little bit of leeway because Will Ospreay's conflicted. He counters that, and Roderick Strong then goes for all his moves, goes for the end of Heartache, which Will Ospreay counters into a Hidden Blade and a Stormbreaker for the win. Really, really good match this. Not my favourite match of the night, which is, you know, it's a Will Ospreay match. It should be my favourite match of the night, but it actually wasn't. I had a few matches that I did prefer over this one. But this was fantastic. This was so, so good. A really hot way to open the show, and I like the conflicted character that Will Ospreay is portraying right now. I like that he's international champion and he's saying he's going to defend it all across the globe like an international championship should be. Fantastic. I really can't wait to see where this goes. And this sort of goes into the next segment, which I think was weird. I think they executed this a little bit poorly. Not the actual segment, but the leading into it. Adam Cole's music hits. It's all about the boom. It's not Undisputed Kingdom music, it's Adam Cole's music. He comes down. I think they should have had him come out past Ospreay, and then they can sort of have a glance with each other. You know, he's just beaten my guy, so I would be pissed. But they didn't cross paths like that. Instead, it was sort of just Will Ospreay goes, Adam Cole comes out. Should have done something with that. And then he cuts an impassioned promo about why he's the best and why he's underappreciated by the fans and why he should be out partying with the Undisputed Kingdom, when we get a video package of a very fancy house, a very fancy scarf, a very fancy ring, and MJF makes his way to the ring to a massive ovation. I loved putting this so early in the show, because I think with some of the rumours that were going around, having this at the end, or having MJF sort of debut in the Anarchy in the Arena, wouldn't have made sense. And having it be really, really early gets that shock value out of you. He comes down, goes for a hug with Adam Cole, low blows him, brainbuster, awesome. Cuts an insanely good promo. I have missed MJF on the microphone so much about how he's the best, how the devil storyline basically seems like he's putting that to bed. It was goofy, it was nonsense. He's going back to hate. No more kangaroo kicks, nothing. It looks like we are getting full heel MJF, and I am completely here for it. This was fantastic. I can't wait to see what he does. I would maybe have him win the Owen Hart tournament. I think that makes a lot of sense. Have him go against Swerve in Wembley and really pivot him and turn him heel. I think that'd be great, and I'm so excited to see what happens with MJF going forward. Next up, we got the Bang Bang Gang taking on Death Triangle. Now, I don't really have a lot to say about this match, other than it was for the Trios Championships, the Unified Trios Championships. This was like a really good collision main event. Like, I don't have that many notes on it. There was some really cool offense early in the match, like Trios offense, because Death Triangle worked together so well. But I do think this slightly outstayed its welcome a little bit. It was not as... like, it just felt like a TV main event. It didn't have enough oomph. I say that a lot. Like, enough power behind it to justify being on this show. I really like the finish, because the finish was Juice Robinson made his return and sort of pushed off, or distracted Pac rather, which made him fall off the ropes, and Jay White caught him in Blade Runner, which I thought was really nice finish. It's good to have the Bang Bang Gang back together again, because they were incredibly over, and adding Juice back to the mix makes them a full-fledged faction. Maybe he can go and do some single stuff, or maybe they freebird it and Jay White frees up to do some single stuff while Juice Robinson defends the Trios titles. We'll see with that. But yeah, this match didn't necessarily hit for me. I thought it was pretty okay. Like, it was really solid in-ring work, but it didn't have enough energy. Well, it did have enough energy. It didn't have enough story behind it for me. As simple as I can put it. It didn't have enough story, or it didn't justify me to care enough. So here's the point where, if you watched my King of the Queen of the Ring review, I had a big issue with the amount of interference that was on this show. And I do to an extent with this show as well, because you look at the matches, you had interference in the first match, the second match, kind of with the third match. You had interference in, the FTW Championship match. You could technically say the Moxley-Takeshita match, the Adam Copeland match technically. And yeah, so there was a lot of interference on this show. I think for some matches it worked. So it worked for me in the first match and the second match. It did I was a bit like, okay, another person's getting involved, but I don't think it was egregiously as bad to me as sort of the interference was at King and Queen of the Ring, only because for some of the matches, like your triple threats and like your barbed wire steel cage matches, they're no DQ, so someone can get involved, and it doesn't necessarily make the refs look that incompetent. It's like, okay, of course Jericho would have Big Bill come out, of course House of Black would come down to help Malachi Black. Those just made sense, but yeah, a little too much interference on the show for me personally. Next up, we got Toni Storm taking on Serena Deeb for the AEW Women's World Championship. I thought this was really, really fun. This was really, really good. It started off all sort of technical, and Serena Deeb wrapping up Toni Storm and really putting her through the ringer with submissions, and then started working over the leg. She was working over the leg a lot, destroying the knee, similar to what she did to Mariah May, and it led to a really nice spot that echoed the Mariah May match, which was throwing in the towel. So it looks like Mariah May is going to throw in the towel for Toni Storm, but she ends up passing it to Luther, which Toni Storm sees, and she's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And then she chucks the towel right into the crowd. And then you had a nice stretch of great near falls. You had Deeb hitting the detox twice, once on the apron and then once in the ring for a really good 2 count. And then Toni Storm hitting a Storm Zero from the second rope, then another one for the 1, 2, 3. I really enjoyed this match. It got a lot of time, a lot of good action in this. I thought this was really solid. I can't wait to see where this Mariah May story goes with Toni Storm. But yeah, I'm really excited, and I thought this was a really solid match. I had no doubt about the winner being Toni Storm, but at the same time, predictability isn't always that bad. Then we got my low light of the evening, and that was Trent Beretta taking on Orange Cassidy, because this match needed a stipulation. This match should not have been a traditional wrestling match. I think this shouldn't have been on the show. I know you want Orange Cassidy on there and you're trying to make something of Trent, but at the same time, it took away a lot, because it's a grudge match, but it's a wrestling match, and it didn't feel like it was justified in that regard. Like, you want us to get invested, you want us to care, but it didn't work for me. I thought it was bog standard, fine, middle of Dynamite match. It wasn't anything to write home about. I like the finish, I like some of the spots, like the beach break onto the outside was pretty nice from Orange Cassidy. I think Orange Cassidy's selling's really good, but I'm not really here for this Trent character. I don't know what it is. I think Trent's been there so long that I'm not necessarily invested in them getting behind him. And yeah, this match for me just didn't hit. Orange Cassidy won with sort of a roll up, and then Trent leaves saying that he's done, and he leaves through the crowd. So a little bit of intrigue there, but I have very little to say about this match. It wasn't for me. Then we had the FTW 3-way as Hook took on Shibata, who took on Jericho in what was an entertaining, silly silly 3-way match. Jericho got a bag of dice out, which looked like it hurt when they kept getting dropped on him. You had the dynamic of Shibata and Hook leaning in and going after Jericho, which was really nice. But again, this sort of story, this Jericho thing, it's landing for some people, not landing for me. This could have been a Dynamite match, and it would have got a really good reaction, I think, on a Dynamite match. I think the crowd was a little bit exhausted at this point and needed to pick themselves back up again. You had some funny spots, like you really, really did. You had like one moment while I scroll to my notes. You had the no selling of the kendo sticks, which I thought was really, really fun. You had a Death Valley driver from Shibata on Hook that sort of missed the table that Jericho was on, so that looked a little bit nasty. And then you have Big Bill come down and make the save for Jericho, and then a T-bone suplex from Hook through the table to Big Bill, which was very physically impressive. I thought that looked really good. And then you had a masked man come down for some interference, start beating up Shibata and Hook while they've both got a submission in on Jericho, and reveals himself to be Brian Keith. And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Brian Keith and the Learning Tree. We'll see where this goes, where this faction grows, because it's quite interesting at this point, the members that they're adding. And then Jericho picks up the win for the World Championship. And yeah, it was a solid 3-way match, but I don't think it necessarily belonged on this card. Then we got the match that I think I'm probably in the minority for, and that is Jon Moxley versus Konosuke Takeshita as an eliminator match for the IWGP Championship. Wow, that was a mouthful. This was maybe my third favourite match of the night, maybe even second if I had to really think about it. I loved this match. I thought this was so good. It was just a very simple story of Takeshita destroying Jon Moxley's arm and Jon Moxley trying to shield his arm, trying to do everything he can to protect the arm, whether it be striking with his other hand, whether it be countering, whether it be, headbutts, just doing everything he can to protect that arm, and Takeshita working over it viciously, hitting elbow strikes into it, hitting it with knees, throwing Moxley into the turnbuckle post. I thought this was really, really fun and really enjoyable. I thought this was genuinely great. It got "This is awesome" chant from the crowd. It was really, really cool. And then a massive cutter in the middle of the match is what swings it for Jon Moxley. And I thought that was really, really good. Takeshita's with his wheelbarrow German suplex, always a thing of beauty. You had a really great counter from Moxley where he hit the Dirty Deeds, countering a knee strike from Takeshita that just looked awesome. And then you had the big near fall, which is when Takeshita throws Moxley into the ring post, hits a knee, hits a Death Rider for a 1-2-3. That was awesome. And then you had sort of the crux of the match where Takeshita's not necessarily getting along with Don Callis. Don Callis is barking orders at him. Takeshita throws a chair in the ring. As he goes to get into the ring, Moxley hits a curb stomp onto the chair and then a Death Rider for the 1-2-3. I love this. This was legitimately one of my favourite matches of the night, and I was really, really impressed with it. I think Takeshita probably should have won, but I get there's, stuff where Mox is the IWGP champion. He's got a defence against Evil. It's not necessarily going to happen. I just thought Takeshita probably needed this win more and would have set him up for a great match, maybe at Forbidden Door, if he'd have beat Mox, but it is what it is. Politics and that. I really enjoyed this. What more can I say? It was a fantastic match to me. Then we got the Sports Entertainment Nonsense Part 1, which was Adam Copeland defending the TNT Championship against a Malachi Black in a barbed wire steel cage. I thought this was really, really fun. I went into this expecting crazy nonsense, and I got crazy nonsense. I got the likes of Gangrel and the House of Black teasing a turn, but then not turning, and then beating down Adam Copeland, which was really fun. And some insane spots, like Adam Copeland's crazy dive where he looked like it probably hurt his legs more than it actually hurt Malachi Black. A crazy, boot from Malachi that sends Copeland to the outside. You had barbed wire everything, a barbed wire crown. This was everything Adam Copeland wanted to do in his match with Finn Balor, which may have got derailed either by sort of the injury that Finn picked up in that match or just the restraints that were on him. I think this was his exact vision. He was like, Tony, I want to do that match, but I want to do it right. And he did, to his credit. If you're not into Spooky Edge, that's okay, but I am into Spooky Edge, and I thought this was really, really fun with some inventive spots using the barbed wire, particularly the opening sequence. I don't want to underwhelm the opening sequence where both guys go for the finisher and they dodge it. I thought it looked really, really sick. There was just insanity. This was insanity, an insane cage match that we don't see a lot in AEW, and I was lapping it up. I thought this was really, really fun. One of my favourite matches of the night, and Adam Copeland picking up the win makes sense. I think he's got a big feud coming, maybe with the Elite. I think Jack Perry would be a good feud for Adam Copeland. Malachi not getting pinned, passing out, makes me think there is credence to that rumour that he sort of refuses to be pinned, which, okay, fair enough, but I think a pinfall victory or a submission victory here would have been a bit more effective for Copeland, and I'm intrigued to see where this goes. Does this now mean that the House of Black lean with Copeland? Does he lead them now? Who knows, but I'm very intrigued to see where this goes. I thought this was a brilliant cage match. Then we got my actual match of the night, and that is Willow versus Mercedes Monet for the TBS Championship. I thought this was sensational. Mercedes Monet playing the heel, running away from Willow, backing into the ropes, everything. She was 100% the heel in this match, and Willow just being the loving, lovely babyface with the power was fantastic. Hitting that babe with the power bomb on Mercedes on the apron looked insane, and there were some really cool bits in this. Like, I really liked the targeting of the limbs. Like, Mercedes would just take every opportunity to dissect Willow, whether it be when she crawled in the ring, and that eventually came back to haunt her when Willow hit a nasty shin breaker on the apron, which I thought looked great. Mercedes selling in this, she's always been great at selling, but the way she contorts her body is second to none. I think she's so great at that. You had like Mercedes hitting multiple meteoras, and it led to the eventual schmozzy finish, which I'm okay with. I actually like this finish. This didn't bother me at all, and that is Stokely and Chris Statlander getting on the apron while Willow has a visual pin. She hit the babe with the powerbomb for the 1-2-3, but Aubrey's back was turned because she was distracted by Stokely, and that causes a bit of friction between Chris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway, which I thought was good. And then you had a really cool finish in which, I'm trying to describe it, Mercedes sort of sunset flips over Willow in the corner and then hits her Monet maker, which I don't think is a very good finisher, but it'll do, and gets the 1-2-3. We have a new TBS champion. I thought this was sick. I thought this was a really great match. One of my favourite women's matches of the year. One of my favourite AEW matches of the year. I really loved this. And then the post-match angle happened, and we got a big old heel turn. We had the likes of Stokely and Chris Statlander turn on Willow. That looks to be a program going forward. What that means for Mercedes Monet, I think Britt Baker. I think just bring back Britt Baker, to be honest, for this, and have a big old dream match at Forbidden Door doing Britt Baker versus Mercedes Monet. She can be done with Willow for now, and that seems like a program going forward. I think that'd be really interesting, and this was a fantastic match and a fantastic setup. Then we got Christian Cage versus Swerve Strickland in a match that had a lot to follow and was unfortunately placed because it was in between a fantastic match of the Willow Mercedes variety and then a sort of insane shenanigans stuff with the Anarchy in the Arena. Yeah, I thought this was pretty good. This was really not pretty good. I think this was a really good showing. There were some spots in this that I thought were excellent, and I liked the story that they were telling with the numbers advantage. It was just a shame that I've been seeing sort of a lot throughout the show, particularly in the opening match. But I loved the way the Patriarchy work. I think the Patriarchy is one of the best factions in like the last 10 years. I think it's so fun the way everyone gets involved. You have Nick Wayne doing his thing. You have basically one on each side of the ring, and it's really cool the way that works. And then you had the spot where Nana gets ejected because he ends up holding the belt, and that leads to Swerve being more vulnerable to the Patriarchy, and he gets hit a lot by the Patriarchy because they have the advantage. You have Killswitch and you have Nick Wayne using that to their advantage to help Christian, and I think that was the right way to go. Like, I think this portrayal of Swerve, whilst not the portrayal that I think we all fell in love with, which was the sort of crazed lunatic side of Swerve Strickland, I think it's really good to see him work this style of match and work against Christian. And then when it got to the final spots, some of them were ungodly cool, like the dive from Swerve that misses and he goes headfirst into some steel steps that he'd moved. That looked insane. And then you had Christian get a really good near fall off a kill switch after Nick Wayne hit a cutter. He snuck back in after being ejected. He snuck back in, hit a cutter for a very good near fall, and then they brawl to the announce table, and Swerve hits one of the most insane looking stomps I've ever seen. Just a vertical leap on that man, ridiculous. Hits that spot, goes into the ring. Christian goes for a spear and gets hit with a house call in midair. That might be the spot of the night for me. Like, it's really hard to call because there were some insane spots, but him hitting that house call, picture perfect timing. It was great. And then a Swerve stomp and a house call for the win. Swerve retains. I think that was obviously the right choice. We all knew it was going to happen, and I have no problems with it whatsoever. I thought this was a really, really good match that I think will actually be overshadowed by sort of the length of this show and some of the criticism in that regard. This was a really good match. Watch it in isolation. I think you'll appreciate it even more. Like, it was really, really good. And then we got Anarchy in the Arena. The Young Bucks, Kazuchika Okada, and Jack Perry taking on Bryan Danielson, FTR, and Darby Allin in what was pure insanity. There's no other way to put it. This was an insane match, and I had a massive smile on my face throughout the entire thing. From when they're brawling to Darby's music, and then you have the change to the Young Bucks music because Matt Jackson asked to change it, and then you have Danielson get on the mic and say, no, play the best entrance song ever, and they start playing the final countdown. Got all the fans riled up. You have Dax and I think Matt Jackson brawling in the foyer bit. You have Jack Perry commit attempted murder on Darby Allin by running him over with a scapegoat truck. You have what looks like poor Okada, doesn't look like he's done many plunder matches. I don't think he has really, who just seems like he's staying away from as many weapons as possible, which I thought was really nice and really suited his character, to be honest. And it just sort of escalated further and further and further to the point where you get the brawling up the stage. You have Jack Perry grab Tony Khan and drag him from the gorilla position out into the arena. Darby Allin then uses a flamethrower on him. I'm not making this up. And he gets put out. He's out of action for a while. That's all happened. There's more stuff that's happened prior to that, like a big swanton bomb from the top of the stage through a table, which is awesome. Okada hitting a elbow off the stage, also awesome. And then I think the issue with this match is, or my main criticism is, I think it peaked too early. It peaked at the flamethrower spot, and then you get about 10-15 minutes more action in the ring with, granted, an exploding chair and Darby getting hung upside down and getting super kicked with thumbtacked shoes. That was all fun, but I think it really hit its peak early, sort of from the flamethrower spot, and then the crowd was sort of like, I think we're ready now. I think we're ready for the finish. It didn't help that there was a bit of a spot where they were tying up Darby, and that seemed like it lasted for ages. But overall, the Elite won, because of course they did. Jack Perry got the pin on Danielson. I hope that's a program going forward. Do Jack Perry versus Bryan Danielson. That could be really fun. And overall, this match was everything I expected it to be. Probably my favourite Anarchy in the Arena, which is probably a controversial take, but I actually really enjoyed this one a lot more than others. I thought this captured sort of the goofiness with the seriousness of like the Eddie Kingston spot where Eddie Kingston came down. I thought this was such wrestling nonsense, and I loved it. It was really, really fun. And that capped off the show. Overall, I think this is a show that will go down for being too long. I think a lot of people will look at the show, point at the show, and be like, this show is too long, I didn't like it. Whereas if you actually look at the elements in it, the elements are fantastic. There's some really incredible wrestling on this show. And yes, while I was hampered by the length, some matches could have been cut. I don't think that detracted too much from my enjoyment of the show overall. And I'd love to go back and rewatch some of these with that hindsight. So I would give this a 4 out of 5. Really, really fun. Really enjoyed it. But I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Did you love it? Hate it? Let me know everything you want, and I'll try and reply to every single one of them. Thank you all ever so much for your support, and have a nice day.